Lee. She is a yoga teacher, body positivity advocate, and writer. We've got Supreme of Wu-Tang coming up here. We have Sherry Simpson-Dean from the Bully Project. And all of this is moderated by Jason George, an actor and an activist. Please give it up for our phenomenal panel of adults.
How y'all doing this morning? Afternoon, I guess, right? Right?
Afternoon. Peace.
Hey.
Before we get too deep, I'm going to take a picture because if it didn't happen on Instagram, it didn't happen, right? So we're going to do this. This is a sense of humor real quick. Boom. But that's the world we live in, right? If it didn't show up on Instagram, it didn't happen. I've literally had that statement said to me before. I had an idea of how this panel was going to start, and then I heard those kids, those young adults, and we have to start there. What were some of the things that leapt out at you from their conversation? I'm going to throw it open and just go free form for a second.
Okay. Just the last piece, which, again, thank you so much for that. That was like, okay, so we effed it all up and taking some responsibility for the way that young people are living their lives right now. So it's not like that generation, this generation. It's like this is the world we've created, and I feel like really taking some serious responsibility for that.
For me, I want to thank everybody that was up here, number one. I want to thank everybody that's here. But for me, the thing that impacted me the most was thanking us, again, like you said, for ruining it, but literally like thanking you for making us aware of what we have done to our youth, to you know, their opportunities, to their mind states, to the current state that they're experiencing, and to, again, like she said, accept responsibility. Because without awareness of it and being conscious of it, there's no that we could change it or that we could positively affect change or influence the youth to be better, do better, or give them the necessary advice or direction that they need to change and to combat these issues.
I feel like I really need to give praise to We Rise for putting together an event that actually does focus on the voices of young people. I feel like this conversation is often dominated by people who have feel like I've risen above this, or I know how everyone should act. And the reality is that literally everybody is struggling with something about themselves. And all that I could think when hearing those voices, aside from y'all or me like 10 to 15 years ago, but it's also that everything that was said is something that I hear people like in their 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s saying the exact same stuff. Yes. And I think that we have a tendency to feel like, you know, this is something that you're going to get over or release, or that that there's going to be this marked turning point if you do everything right. And the idea that adults are so quick to be like, you're over dramatizing this, or it's not that big of a deal. It's like, how could you say that when you're out here over dramatizing things? So the reflection of truth was really profound for me.
Yeah, you hit on a great point that I think we need to expand on. The difference between what young people are going through when it comes to social media and what adults are going through. We talk like adults just by virtue of the fact that you turned 18. You've now got the answers. You've now got it straight, and you're good to go, and you can handle this like an adult. It's a phrase we use that inherently means responsibility and that sort of thing. And it's not necessarily true. Right. Let's run it down, because we all are not 18 years old anymore, and so
I am.
right, exactly.
Forever 18.
Supreme will forever be 18 years old.
Hashtag.
Hashtag forever 18. Talk to me about your first interactions with social media, because we're all of an age where social media, every new platform we've been around for, we've been adults for every platform that arrived. I know me personally, I was not trying to be on Facebook or any of those things. I didn't see the point. I didn't get it. And then because I'm an actor, and I do a show called Grey's Anatomy, and it's one of the most social media active shows there is, there was a lot of push to get on board. And I didn't get it at first, but eventually when I finally did join, I immediately got hit with the positive side of things, which was we had done an episode about pediatric cancer. And I had a lot of families with children with cancer reach out to me and say, thank you for just giving us a voice. And suddenly social media wasn't this ridiculous thing anymore in my mind. Suddenly I saw some of the positivity to it. So that was one of my earliest experiences with social media, and it's colored. I've always seen there is positive in this tool, but I also see all the negative. So I'm just wondering what your first experiences with social media were.
I did not want anything to do with Facebook, Instagram, nothing. I'm in the music industry, and it's like something that you're supposed to do, right? So Snoop Dogg is a personal friend of mine, and I'm looking at Snoop's page, and he posted a picture of us, and it got like 70,000 likes, and I'm like, man, like I got 200 likes. Like, what am I doing wrong? You know? But then it's like, okay, so from a professional standpoint, it's like we're celebrities, we're artists, we're actors, et cetera. We have to have these tools to, you know, promote ourselves, market ourselves, you know, our brands, et cetera. So looking at it from a business standpoint, it's like, okay, eventually I got to do this. In like 5 or 6 years that I've had social media, I have like 300 and something posts, and Snoop got like 40,000 posts. So it was me just like why? You know, like, why is this necessary? Why do I need to share myself and share my life? Why do I need to take a picture of a pancake that I've been eating pancakes all my life? Why do I need to take, you know, I know what a hamburger is. Like, look at this lake. I've seen the lakes. They're cool, you know? And so it's like these kind of things. It's like, okay, Santa Monica, same beach. We all got the same pictures. So it was kind of like trying to really like, get into why, get into the relevance of it, get into the whole interacting and sharing and opening myself up, because it was kind of, I was, I guess, somewhat afraid and you know, exposing that side of myself, being vulnerable, right. You know? And it wasn't until later that, and I never really experienced that, but I've had friends, I've had family. I lost my little brother and my little cousin, 15 and 16 years old, to cyberbullying. They both committed suicide, and you know, it was like really getting into that, and like yourself, not to speak too long, but like yourself, to where you start interacting with people. Like the Bullying Project, we are on the same site together. I support them without actually having met them, because we realized after a while that we are eating the same food, and we're sharing the same skies, and we're sharing the same good times and bad times, and we hurt and we cry, and we're all one. So you kind of really start to look at it like that, and then it's like, okay, how can I use this as a tool? Right. How can I help? How can I look and see what's really going on with these people? A lot of people that are always promoting themselves are hiding, you know? It's like you live in a one-bedroom apartment, but you took a picture at your friend's mansion, or you took a picture by your friend's Bugatti, but you got a Toyota Tercel. Knock it off. Stop lying. You know what I'm saying? Right. You know, you went to Roscoe's, or you sat at such and such table popping bottles, but my bill was $13,000. You didn't pay the bill, you know? So it's kind of really understanding what it is, what the source is, and then really like utilizing that knowledge and information to say, you know what? When I speak to the youth, when I speak to people, adults, etc., now we know what the truth is, so let's be able to teach them how to consider the source and let them understand that their power is to turn it off or turn it on. It's to support it or not support. It's to follow or unfollow, like or dislike. But remember this, whatever you're doing, if you're putting your time into that, that's worship. That's, you know what I'm saying, becomes your so-called God. That becomes what you give your life to, because time is life. Time is money, they say, but time is life, and that's more important than any money, you see? So really understanding that, understanding social media, it's like, I kind of control it, because I don't want to give my life to it. I don't want to give my love to it. I don't want to give my energy to anything that's not going to benefit me or that I can't be a positive impact or influence on.
Time is life. I'm going to hold on to that one. I'm going to roll with that one for a minute. Give it up. Jesse?
So I definitely am a part of the generation where social media, like, I clearly remember a time before it, but it also became a part of my life, and I've seen this rise of people not caring about it at all. People over the age, I would say a hard line at 30, nobody caring about it over the age of 30, everyone being like, I don't even know what you're doing, I don't get it. So that I remember a time before brands were on it, before people thought of it as a tool, and in my mind, that's still what it is. Like, I got on it when it was like Zanga and LiveJournal and Blogger, and it was for college students, exactly. And I got on Instagram back when it first came out, and when Instagram first came out, it was literally just college students, and I am a yoga practitioner, and at that time, there were not that many yoga people on Instagram. We were primarily like very serious practitioners and teachers who wanted to have community with one another, because one of the major benefits of social media is that it can unite people who would not be in community with one another. And so it was beautiful to be able to communicate with people that I would never have met otherwise, but I've noticed, and because I stay in my own little bubble about it, it took me a while to kind of get to a place of like, oh shit, the whole world is ruined now, and it's because of social media. And I think that we have gotten to a place where it's not about, I think there's nothing wrong with sharing your waffle or sharing your like view of the sunset if you're sharing it because it's like, people have kept photo albums forever.
Like intention.
You know?
What are your intentions?
It's all about intention. But I think that because, and I'm not immune to this at all, but I think that because we have started placing actual value, our human value along with what we're showing to other people, it's this like seismic shift that as much as it creates industry and it creates opportunity, and frankly, I would not be here sitting with y'all were it not for that, it is repugnant because it creates this environment where people would literally, like, you can look at somebody else's life and say, I'm not doing what they're doing, so I'm not good enough. And that shift has been so subtle, but it's happening to everyone. I mean, I remember whenever Facebook first came out, when it was still the Facebook, and my mom was like, she could not understand. I was obsessed with the Facebook, and she was like, I don't know what you're doing. I don't care. And now I'm like critical of everything.
Me. No, she was following me.
She was following you in real life because she actually, anyway, point is, she was like so against it, but now my mom is like the main person on Facebook doing the most, taking selfies. Like it's to the point where I'm literally looking at her like, Tangela, is this what we're doing right now? She can be so salty. Anyway, the point is, from when I first got on social and the reasons that I stayed on it, so much has changed. And this is not even getting into the bullying that I personally experienced on there. The change has been so subtle and so sly that we think that there's nothing wrong with it, when really, like, I think that collectively we need to back up and take a look at the big
Hit the reset button.
Yeah, thank you for that. I think Facebook has become like the older generation's thing now. I mean, now it's like, okay, it's no longer the Facebook, but it's just like, oh, grandma had so-and-so last week, and that's cool. There's nothing wrong with that. But I kind of feel like, social media goes the way of the world. It's like, I've worked a lot with the UN. I'm a film producer, and I've worked a lot with the United Nations. And, whether you love the UN or hate it or think it's like ineffective or whatever, I would say what's good about it is this idea that everybody has a voice and that we really do need to hear from people. And so I like social media for just the reality that it's a mirror for who we are as a society. So if, somebody's posting their hamburger, like that's hilarious to me, but yes. Like at the same time, that's what's of interest to that person. And so I think that what we have is a tool to be able to actually look and see who are we right now. When all this stuff arose with Charlottesville and all that, it was like, what? Like, we didn't know that existed, but social media allowed us, frighteningly enough, a way to
immediate.
See. It's immediate. It's like there's no delay. So I think this is really important, but I'm going to go back to something Michelle Obama, I heard her say recently, which is that we've got this huge tool that can change the world, and we're not even training anybody how to use it. Like, nobody, it's like you could say anything in the world. I mean, as we know some people do on a regular basis, right? Tweeting and using this, but we don't really take back to responsibility. Like, how you're just going to hand somebody a phone and be like, okay, you could literally contact anyone in the world right now. So I think it kind of comes back to this idea too of, do what we're going to do. This is a free country. We have great freedom, but with that comes some responsibility. And I'm interested in, like, how do we train our kids, right? Or how do we train ourselves, forget about the kids, but to be responsible for how we deal with Twitter and all this stuff. So I'm looking at that. And the last thing I guess I'll say about that is, you know, when we are talking about the UN, my first experience was we run around saying, we'd love it to be one world. And then I think we're really confronted right now with the idea of power. And I was saying this earlier, this idea of, like, if we grow up, like, just as people with this idea of, like, there's good and there's bad. There's good and evil. There's, like, cool and there's not cool. Everything is these, like, black and white paradigms. So where's the in-between? Like, how do we begin to live in a world where we're okay with a kid who doesn't have the coolest, like, you know, like the young man was saying, like, I'm in my room, you know, watching people run around the world, do whatever they're doing. So how do we respect and honor each other in a world where we're all just trying to be cool? That's kind of like the question I'm grappling with.
The culture of cool.
Yeah,
that is
the
a thing.
culture of cool.
You hit on a key point. I'm gonna throw back a couple of things. I'm actually making notes on my phone. I'm not just up here texting folks and friends and whatnot. It was Miles that said, comparison is the death of joy.
Beautiful statement.
And that hit me. And when y'all see the T-shirt, know that I made it, and Miles would get a check.
And I executive produced it.
Supreme's gonna be on it too. But you talk about training. Look, there was a thing I remember back in the late '90s. There was this concept that started to come up, literally just talking about media as we understood it then, called media literacy. How do you teach people to understand that, you know, because this is also the rise of the Fox News of the world, the, you know, MSNBCs, where, you know, prior to that, there were things in the world where the news had to be the news. The news had to be balanced. If you had on one candidate, you had to have on the other candidate. You had to literally give kind of equal time to ideas. And then that went south. And there was a literacy that needed to be understood that what's presented on the news, if, you know, I was listening to, you know, is not necessarily the reality of the world. I was listening to a news channel that I just mentioned, and will not mention again, that, and they listed, ran down 3 or 4 different crimes committed by immigrants, specifically, and it was like they went out of their way to find crimes committed by immigrants. And if that's all you're presented with, you think that's the totality of the world. And so a literacy in terms of media teaches you to understand, you said the phrase a moment ago, consider the source. Exactly. Consider the source. So going back to what you were talking about and Michelle Obama's point about training, how do we teach, and Jessamine, you called it a tool. How do we teach, what are the tools that we need to give people to use the tool properly? Like literally, what are some of the tools that we can give to adults and young people to understand how to properly use, or you know, use, and not just use when you're actively the one typing, but use when you're the one consuming what's coming out of it. What are some of those tools?
I mean, I think that there needs to be an overall emphasis on the real world as opposed to the digital world, and really focusing on putting more time and effort into the real world, because the source of cyberbullying is people being unsatisfied with their life in the real world. The reason that people are upset whenever they see images that don't look like their lives is because they're not tuned into their real lives. And for me, it is literally a practice, not a perfect, to try to be as present in my actual life as possible, and to see social media as just like a game, something fun to fuck with. It's not something that I need to be emotionally caught up in. It's very, very complicated to have that kind of dialogue whenever it's a part of your professional life. But I think that just as a general rule across the board, everyone could take, like, all the time that we spend on social media could be wrapped up in an hour in a day, not like sprinkled throughout the whole day. And I don't think, I'm troubled by the idea of speaking on a soapbox or a platform or trying to like give direction to anyone else whenever literally everyone here could start with that and have enough work for the rest of their lives. So I feel like so much of the process is us reflecting this positive experience in life to other people so that we don't feel compelled to live vicariously through the lives of other people.
I'm just going to jump in just for a second and touch on that last point that you made. Nobody has the silver bullet. The beauty, and I think one of the things that needs to happen more often, is people owning the fact that, hey, I'm figuring this out too. I think that one of the beautiful things that I told him, when I first let my son get on social media, I said, are you ready for this? He said, why? I said, because I'm a grown-ass man, and, I said, and my feelings get dinged every once in a while. I said, I can shrug a lot off. I said, but every once in a while you catch a bullet. I said, are you ready for that? I said, because I still have trouble with it. You know what I mean? And I think it was empowering to him to hear that when you have trouble, that's normal. And it doesn't stop just because you're an adult. But it's a responsibility that comes with it too.
There's part of me that actually thinks it may be easier for people who are younger, because imagine if you've never known a world where this was not the case. You will be conditioned a lot easier than the person who has always lived their whole life without people constantly criticizing it, and then you get on social media and all of a sudden it's like, oh my God, people can say these awful things about me. I think that we have a lot to learn from either side. Like, I think that the youth can teach the adults and the adults can teach the youth, and really it's that same thing of all of us trying to have a better experience individually.
Mm-hmm. We're all figuring this out.
I think that's the point. We are all figuring it out. And like, this is, someone said it earlier, this is not a panel of experts. We're a panel of people who have life experiences, and we're all part of this conversation. This is not like us up here. This is all of us at once,
I'm an expert.
Okay. Right. Well, forgive me, Supreme. Right. Except for Supreme, we're all in this together. And that's what I kind of keep coming back to. Like, it does seem like, it is about living our real lives. But I think that on the real tip, what we heard from our teenagers today, it's like there is a conflating of real life and social media. If you spend 3.5 hours of your day on social media, like, you are really going to be living in that world. And I think that rather than, deny that that's where we've gone with it, we might want to pull it back. Maybe we can do that, and we could lead by example. So I guess my question, I'm always like, good for asking questions. I even ask my kids questions. Well, what do y'all think? But, what do we think about, is it possible to pull it back? Like, we have 3.5 hours a day for our teenagers. Yeah. I spend at least an hour on social media myself a day between my phone and what's at home. So is it even possible to do? I think it is, but I think we're going to need to take it on like for real, because right now that's just the way it is.
Go ahead, please.
After you.
Okay, cool. I hate to be a pessimist, because there's part of me that wants to be like, yes, I definitely think that we can pull it back. I don't see it, because I don't know if y'all watch that show Dark Mirror or Black Mirror or something like that. Anyway, so the season 3 premiere of that show is basically like social media runs the entire universe. And I watched it and I was horrified, not because it seemed far away, but because I had just been at VidCon, which is like a pretty big YouTube convention, and that is exactly how it was at VidCon. Like, they want to know your social handle, and they don't care about anything else. They're going to determine whether or not they speak to you based on follower count. And this is, in terms of YouTubers, I'm definitely on the older end of the spectrum. I would say most people who are really successful on YouTube are between like 10 and 20 years old, and they are totally used to this. I just don't know how we pull it all the way back collectively, because I do think that we're like spinning. I feel like we've spun a wheel that I don't know how we truly get it to stop. But I do think that it starts with people being more conscious of the fact that it's even a problem, because most people don't even see an issue with this at all. They're like, what's the problem? Yeah, I spend all my day on social media. Who cares? I hate my life, so what difference does it make? It's like, maybe we should focus on not hating your life so much.
I'm going to be the optimist here. Anything that's been started can stop. All right? The universe is a beautiful word, because it's universe, right? The space, the sky, the heavens, everything we live in. But universe is also uni, which is one verse. There's one verse. There's only one truth. It's also you and I verse. So when you and I verse, then we can share the same understanding, right? Everybody hold this hand up. Just hold a hand up. Everybody do this. All right? Now just grab this finger and just bend it back. It's weak, right? It's weak, right? You can break it, all right? Now put that same hand up and then put it together. Now you break stuff. So separate, we're weak. Together, we're powerful. Okay? And that's the key. Power is any number multiplied by itself. So anything that we give power to, we give our time, our energy to, then we give it strength. The less time, the less power that you give to, it has no strength. You work out, you bench press, 100, 200, 300. Now we're in a 400-pound club. We all swole, yoke, cut up. Stop working out, what happens? It's all gone. You see what I'm saying? You learn another language, all right? And you learning this language, or you learning to play an instrument, or you learning this job or whatever, and then you stop doing it for some years, time passes, you lose it. So if you don't use it, you lose it. The same way Facebook is dying. Where's MySpace at now? Yeah, where are all those old media sites? They're gone. You know, where is Egypt at? Where is ancient Greece? Where is ancient Rome? Where are all those ideologies, philosophies, cultures, the ancient Mayans, the ancient ruins, the civilizations? They're gone. You see? So everything has a beginning and an end, right? We all have two eyes that see one thing. Speaking to what you said in regards to filters. Television is tell, lies, vision. We tell lies to your vision. History is his story, but you got to write your story, right? So we bury the lies in a library and so on and so forth. So you start breaking these words down, you start breaking these sciences down, right? It's social media. So once you enter the realm of social media, don't expect it to be about yourself. You could take a selfie, but socially we're going to judge it, because we're trained to do that. So it comes back to education, and it starts with the youth. It starts with the babies, right? Wu-Tang is for the children. Let me insert that. Insert that. Rest in peace, old dirty bastard, Jay Dilla. So it comes back to education that starts in the home, because I'm not immune. None of us are immune, and we get attacked a lot. Simple stuff like I said, on the West Coast, and then somebody wrote East Coast. So what are you trying to do? Start a conflict between East Coast, West Coast? Or like new album out right now, download my new album, Supreme Life Volume 1. Then like some 5 other people, get my album, listen to my new song. This is my stuff. Don't post your stuff on my stuff. But do I engage that? You know, do I engage that? Or Wu-Tang, you guys ain't relevant no more. You guys is old, you know? Okay, well, do I engage that? Do I entertain that? You know, for the youth, for girls, for, you know, everything from what you wear to what you do to what kind of car you drive to where you eat, where you go, what you do. Don't look at this stuff as it being real, like what's virtual and what's actual, you know? You can put a filter on your face with halos and birds and flowers and hearts and all that, but they know that's not real, and you know that's not real, so why give it power? You're looking at it yourself and you know that's fake, you know? And then again, when we go back to consider the source, why does that matter? It's mind over matter. If you don't mind, it don't matter. You see? And don't let small things, you know, or a matter of fact, I remember this. An elder brother told me I was mad one day. I was mad, and I'm a cool guy, but when I get mad, it's bad. You know what I'm saying? And this dude did some stuff and hit me, and I was like, man, and I was like, it was coming. Like, as soon as I see this dude, I'm smashing him. Immediately, no talking, I'm putting my hands on this dude. He messing with my money, right? This club promoter guy. And he was like, man, what's, like, I was messing his vibe up. I'm like entering him and projecting my stuff onto him, and that's what people do. She said they're just miserable, they're sad, misery loves company. We know these things, we got to teach our youth that. You right? And I'm like, man, this word is born. Yo, as soon as I see this cat, yeah. And he was like, it was sunny. He was like, yo, man, chill out, man. He said small things affect small minds. And I was like, wow, because I am not small-minded. He bust my whole head open, and I had to accept that. And then that clicked into my mother telling me, nobody ever chokes swallowing their pride. Nobody ever chokes swallowing their pride. And nobody ever had a good life from doing wrong or making other people feel other than worthy and valuable and beautiful, you know, and equal. You see? So it comes back to we're one. You got 2 eyes that see one thing, 2 ears that hear one thing, 2 nostrils that smell one thing, you know? You got 2 breasts that produce 1 milk. You got 1 navel. You got 2 feet. You could take 1 step at a time. 2 lungs. You could take 1 breath at a time. You got 1 billion words in your mind. You can only say 1 at a time.
Right.
You got 1 heart, 1 life, 1 death. So we're one. So place value on yourself. Place value on your life. Place value on what you're posting.
In the real world.
In the real world. And consumption, lastly, you are what you eat. We got to teach our children they are what they eat mentally. emotionally, physically, psychologically, financially, sexually. If you consume and keep consuming sexually, then what's going to happen? STDs, AIDS, death, right? Or spread it to other people and cause harm. If you keep consuming the wrong foods, then what's going to happen? Illness, heart disease, health disorders, right? So if we're projecting all of this and we're creating this, then we got to realize that we're a part of this. So the same way we can be part of the problem, we are the solution. So that starts with self.
Most definitely. Give it up. Give it up. We're going to throw it up into a Q&A, but I just want to touch off the last point. We had the pessimistic view, we had the optimistic view, and I think the reality is, and I'm joking, but when I say pessimistic, I think it's also in the middle. I'll throw this out to the parents. We were talking about the fact that adults struggle with all the issues that young people struggle with when it comes to social media. I think if you can, just like you talk about lifting 100 pounds, 200 pounds, 300 pounds, people go to trainers. People do exercise things with a friend, right? You do it with a partner. If you can get with your child and if you can show them, look at this person I'm following and I'm feeling like they had the best vacation ever and I never had a vacation like that. Yeah, well, do they ever show when they have a bad day? If you can show them you breaking down the people that you see and the people that you compare yourself to, then they can be, that helps teach them. They learn to walk from watching you. They learn to talk from watching you. They will learn to break down what they see from watching you. If you take the time to share that with them, I think that's the most powerful tool to be able to break it down and say, this hurt my feelings, but you know what? I had 2 comments and that's all I can keep thinking about and they were both negative. They both came at me. But I got 20 likes. How come I don't focus on my friends who are actually there for me? They didn't write a comment.
Beautiful.
You know what I mean? There's a way that you can actually work on yourself while actually working with your child as well. Now we'll throw it up into a Q&A from, because we want to hear what y'all have to say because it's a conversation. So we have a microphone over here. There might be another one floating around. If you guys have any questions or comments that you want to get into the mix. This young lady down front.
Josh.
Hi, my name is Michelle, and that little poet with the red shirt is mine.
And you are hers?
Yeah, I'm her Uber driver.
Yeah, I know about that.
So when I asked her about bullying and who she thought was the biggest offender, she said it was the leader of our country. And that is really a big deal if a little kid's saying that, she's constantly offended by the things that she believes in. She supports DACA and immigration, and she's really proud of it. So she responds to these things, and I struggle about letting her respond. I am her social media manager, so I delete things. But some of these things I let them stay on. Netiquette went out the door, but how are we going to take it away from the president? So stop tweeting things that kids are listening to or, taking to heart.
I'd go for that one. So first of all, thank you for your amazing daughter. Like crazy, amazing, absolutely incredible. And I think that
We see you. She's sitting right there.
Oh, there she is. Okay.
She snuck in while you were talking, Mom.
Violetta. So I think the thing about this is that, the president is an anomaly because we haven't had one like him before.
That's what he is?
And we also haven't had Twitter operating like it's operating right now from the White House, which is, it is what it is. I think the greatest lesson we can get from this is that what we talked about earlier, that just because he is the president, just because he's supposed to be an adult, does not mean he's a responsible person, right? So I'm not even getting into him, but I think that what we have is an amazing example of the reality that it's who is considered the source, and that even at a presidential level, the source can be questioned, right? So we're all learning about disruption from this president. We're learning about the reality that we are as powerful as individuals. Any one person and what you say is powerful. So I think that we just take those lessons and we keep building ourselves up. Your daughter, and here she is, Violetta, is doing what she does despite hearing that. And in a weird way, I actually do believe it's fueling us to look and see, how can we do better than that? It wouldn't be difficult, but how can we do better all the time? So that's what I think. I think that, her voice, my voice, this beautiful sign over here, art saves lives. That's real. Art does save lives. And why is that? Why are we even here? Because, We Rise recognizes that every voice is important. And our art, our words, our creations, every thought we have is a creation. So that's a beautiful gift to this world. But it can either tear down or it can build it up. So that's our choice. That's when it comes back to us, to know the value of our voices and to make a choice. Every time you say something, are you building up or are you tearing down? Yeah.
Immune system, use it or lose it, right?
Use it or lose it.
You have to be exposed to something dangerous and negative so that you can build up immunity so it does not affect you anymore. Our whole country, there's an entire, they talk about a third of the country is going to support him no matter what. 2/3 of the country now has decided determinedly their children do not want to behave that way. It's become an example, and we've all grown more immune and have learned better than ever before. Consider the source, consider who's typing it, and so that's, I think, the silver lining of the worst situation we've ever had in the presidency.
I got some things to say about Trump, but I don't know who's in the building. I don't want no red dots on me. I don't want to get pulled over.
I have a lot to say about this topic that would completely draw us out of the Q&A, so I agree.
Yeah, all the kids leave the room for a moment. Let's really talk.
Without giving him time, we've discussed this. Other questions on this topic of social media? This gentleman down front.
Hello, everybody. My name is Ryan. What's up? What's up? Thank you for coming up. It's not necessarily a question, but just something that I'd found recently. It says, "How we spend our days, of course, how we spend our lives," by Annie Dillard. And I try, with social media, I'm a photographer, so I kind of have to use it because that's, how you display your work portfolio and all that. So when I see other photographers with, like you said, the thing with Snoop about the hundreds of thousands of likes, I don't feel like I'm not doing enough. I kind of get inspired by that, and it makes me think about, and I'm not casting judgment on anyone, but I was raised to not see the negative. I mean, be aware of it.
Let me ask you this right
but
there. I
not
want to
look
interject.
at things. Go ahead.
Did you have to learn how to do that? Because you have to,
absolutely. I learned through.
Because first it's like, man, he got more than me, but then it's like, you know what? I'm glad he's doing his thing.
Yeah, because then I see things like you said about the pancakes. I'm like, oh, that looks dope. I want to go there to eat. I don't think I don't look at it with through a negative lens.
That's good.
And I feel like that starts with parenting, and we need to turn the conversation more towards, people are going to say mean things, growing up, being black and all that, I've heard it. But you got to try to see the positive when you look at things and not necessarily oh, this person's showing off.
So from the beginning,
whatever.
we don't even teach the negative.
Yeah, don't even let it into your realm.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Be inspired. When you see someone doing something, like you said, the guys 10 to 20 on YouTube, I see that, I'm like, yo, that's dope. And I feel
I'm gonna be on Grey's Anatomy.
Yeah,
we hooked up now, brother.
And another thing, I feel like we need to embrace the internet because, I think that it's a utility just like electricity or running water. And if you turn your back to it, you're going to be left behind. That's right. But you just need to learn to, not have it destroy you. Mm-hmm. Just like how if you eat, a pound of cake, at one time, that's bad for your health. You can't sit there and consume the internet. You know what I mean? You're told to, take short showers and turn the lights off when you walk out the room. So you kind of have to have that mindset when you approach the internet. You can't just consume it to look at nonsense.
I think you're absolutely right, but I think the point is, I think we as individuals, especially as parents or amongst friends, you need to have that conversation out loud about it. It is a tool. A hammer can build a house, a hammer can crack a skull. Depends on how you use it. So the issue is, how are you using the tool? And I think the point about what you are, what you consume, is a point that everybody needs to reiterate to everyone you ever come in contact with. You are what you consume. If all you watch is videos of people busting their ass or hurting other people or doing crazy things, then you're full of nothing useful. Yeah. Right?
You are what you think.
But if you do a little bit of that, but then every once in a while you also consume somebody who's taken phenomenal photography of places that you have never seen and may never see in your life, but you see it and you say, oh my goodness, that exists in this world. That's a real place. That's so beautiful. You ate something that's the veggies, and over here you ate a truckload of Twinkies, right? Can you eat Twinkies all day? or do you get a little bit of veggies and some protein in your body, right? So I think that's
Balance.
a conversation that needs to constantly be going on. Any other questions, ladies and gentlemen? Comments, thoughts?
Maybe from one of the youth here.
The young people.
Hi.
Hi. Hi.
You sound good on the mic. You're good.
That was weird. I just hear it here, so it's okay. But my name is Gina, and the question that I have for you today is like about how like the youth seem to have so many voices and so many things to say, and like we're kind of seen as like a divide between the youth and adults and generational gaps. We have like different kind of communities there, and we have different experiences that have taught us what we believe in. But the kind of rhetoric of like censorship and kids get out of the room with just like things that we say that we're used to saying, we're used to hearing. But like I feel that now more than ever, kids need to be in the room. And there's this kind of also choice that parents are faced with of like, when will we let our kids have exposure to this, because it is a toxic and like risky place. But it's also like, how much is the censored world really a better world as well? So I just wanted your opinions on censorship and the inclusion of young voices, because maybe those young voices, like the ones we heard earlier, are actually going to positively influence the voices of adults.
Good question.
That is a word, first of all. Like, I understand the need to censor. I get it. But ultimately, it's a fruitless endeavor, because regardless of like how long somebody shields you, you will always eventually be exposed, and it's just delaying the truth. And especially because we're living in a time of utmost chaos where everybody is having their shit turned all the way upside down. It's so important that we stop seeing it as like, there's some people who, you know, like, let's shield the eyes of these people. Dude, we could be living in a nuclear holocaust tomorrow, and that's the reality of the situation.
Yes,
and
it
I
is.
think that it's really unfortunate that there's so little respect for voices that are actually, I mean, what they said in what Merrick and Paulina were saying in the spoken word about how they're cleaning up this mess, that's something that every generation has felt. I mean, like in the 60s especially, it was like this feeling of we're having to deal with everything that y'all have done before. And it's like we forget that adults are children who got taller. It's not anything more than that. And I think that we can't live in an age where people think that their voices are not important because of their youth, because your youth may be all you have. So if we can sit in a space where every voice is relevant, that's how we can actually be lifted up. As long as it's people who are limited, the sight is limited by the past. If you can start to understand that those who are not as jaded, those who maybe like are open to new ideas, that maybe that's the perspective that we need. I feel like everything that you said is so critical and totally missing.
I want to add this. Obviously, whatever we have done, or those who preceded us, our elders, didn't do enough. So how can we not listen to the youth when we have our own complaints? They're just in a different space and time. We're concerned about the air, the water. What are we leaving for the youth? Obviously, if they have a voice, they're just young adults, like you said. They're, you know, that's it. We're all the same. We're all one. But we need to listen to the youth as the people being in control right now, so to speak. Just like we need to listen to the elders. We need to learn the lessons of old so we can prepare the now. There is no such thing as time. It's always now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is still now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is still now. It's always now. So in this moment, they see that which we don't see. Just like the elders have already saw what we've already seen. You see, so it's our responsibility to prepare this moment and to create the most opportunities in an environment to where our youth can be in the best position educationally, financially, mentally, psychologically, etc., so that when they get to their 30s and 40s and 50s and they're responsible for what's transpiring in government and in community and society, that they're prepared and they have the necessary knowledge. They have knowledge of themselves, you see, and they can prepare it for the generations to come. Like, I'm responsible for you, and you're responsible for him, and he's responsible for my children, so on and so forth. So in reality, we're all responsible for each other. You see? So there should be no censoring of anybody because everybody's voice is relevant.
Yeah, I think we need you in the room.
Yes,
is
thank
the
you.
answer. We need you in the room.
Thank you.
And we need all of us in the room too. And I think a strange thing happens when people quote unquote grow up. And I think we might want to look together at what it means to be a grown up, because I think it's kind of BS. I think it's just like utter BS. Like seriously, not just we're taller, but you know, something actually may even get lost along the way, because a lot of times, at least here in this society, like adults are very consumed with survival. And, you know, it's like, how do we, you know, get the rent? How do we get the mortgage? What house am I going to buy? You know, like these are just the busy things of life. And what young people are bringing, like why art saves lives, is that young people are often just naturally artists. Right? When you're young, you're creating like every minute. When you're playing, you're imagining and you're creating, and you let your imagination rip. And we need a lot more of that. You know, we need a lot more of that, because something happens along the way. I don't know, adults, do you know what I'm talking about? Where you might kind of want to get a little desensitized along the way. So we need young people to remind us of why we're actually here. And it's not to survive, it's actually to thrive, and it's to create a lot more than we currently see. So I'm excited. I'm a ridiculous optimist, truly, but I think you need to have that, because if you are on Capitol Hill, and I don't know if anybody saw like the Zuckerberg thing where, you know, some of these folks on Capitol Hill were like, now what's the business model for Facebook? It's like, what? Like, you don't know, you know, like there's so much disconnect, but it's not just adults. It's what society tends to do when we stop dreaming and we stop imagining what is possible, and we stop believing that we can actually build a society that's better than the one we had before. So thank you for your question.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Can I say one thing just to piggyback off of all of this? Because it's very interesting to me that this conversation is being had specifically around age, when it could really be applied to so many different divides. And one of the things that disappoints me the most about the internet is that we don't understand why it exists. You know, and specifically social media, because the whole there has to be a bigger reason.
The government is tracking us.
They were doing that anyway to a certain degree, but I feel you. But it's like we have to get to a place where we're listening to one another and not shouting at each other for having different opinions. No one is going to have the same. We're not all standing at the same facet of this massive diamond of life. Everyone has a different experience. And because we are always coming from a space of fear and antagonism and looking for an enemy, it becomes really difficult for us to actually just hear one another. That maybe no one is right, maybe no one is wrong, maybe everyone is just here. And if we can start to understand that, then perhaps, I mean, there's so much fear and sadness and loneliness and confusion that is embodied on social media. And I think that if we can collectively start to work from a space of compassion, that's how we can hear one another, and that's how we can actually change the world. And that's how social media can be of value and not just this metric.
Absolutely, absolutely. I talking about the power of young people and what they bring to the table and being in the room. I do a lot of work in anti-gun violence, and I always thought the needle would be moved by mothers because they've gotten it done so many other times and have throughout history. The reality is it's the young people's voices that are moving the needle. And one of the silver linings, I think, of social media as a tool is the problem with it is the anonymity. You don't see me, so I can say whatever I want to say. That's the worst thing. I can make everybody say, hey, look at me. I can put up pictures of myself however I want to, filter them however I want. Look at me, look at me, look at me. That's the negative. But the power of it is the anonymity. What you say is the important thing. So when one of the Parkland kids makes a statement, I don't say, oh, dismiss that kid. I see it and I go, that's a powerful statement. Oh, and it turns out it was made by somebody who was young. So what you are saying becomes more important than who it is saying it in the world, unless you happen to be, Kanye, in which case, there's a whole other thing. But that's the power, I think, that comes out of this tool, is that what you are putting out there can be more important. It defines you more than the physical characteristics in front of you, because I could pretend to be a 13-year-old girl on the internet. You won't know. But Violetta, an 11-year-old girl, can say something and pretend. If she pretended to be a 25-year-old white male, it might get listened to very differently than people looking at her. So that power, I think, is what young people are taking over. And that's why I think it's one of the things that's going to be. So that makes me really optimistic about where this tool is going to go, if it's used correctly.
I know we got to close out. The last thing I want to say really fast is this. When we're children, we're taught to make believe. Like, what are you going to be? You grow up. I'm going to be an astronaut. I'm going to be the president. I'm going to be a princess. We can't teach our children lies. That has to stop. Make you be. Be means to exist. Be means to live. So make you be, L-I-E, believe. Make you be a lie. I'm not going to make you live a lie. I'm not going to teach you about things that don't exist. I'm going to teach you the knowledge of yourself. So we need to teach, and that starts with, again, with parenting and responsibility. We need to teach our children to know themselves, know who they are, know their power, know their value, know their self-worth, and become selfless, not selfish.
We're going to have to leave it on that note. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, thank the panelists for being up here.
Thank you.
Thank you all for showing up. Thank you for caring. And continue the conversation as we keep going forward, because this is just one space to do it, but you can do it amongst each other and you can keep it moving forward. Take care. Thank you, We Rise, for putting this together.
Thank you, We Rise. We love you all.
Thank you, We Rise.
Right. Please give it up one more time for our amazing panelists. Make some noise if you